Добрий день. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about progressive delivery. There's two things I want you to remember after this talk is what is progressive delivery? How can you easily implement the progressive delivery Canary deployments on Kubernetes by yourself easily today? So, okay. I work with Adobe Experience Manager Cloud Service, but I've been a long contributor to open source. And if you have used Jenkins, Kubernetes, maybe you're using some of the things I've made in the past. And also I'm part of the Google Developer Experts through the stuff where I'm doing on the cloud. So what is progressive delivery? It's a term that is new, but includes deployment strategies that have been around for a while. So this is, when I'm deploying something, I'm not deploying it to everything at once, but I'm trying to avoid these problems where I roll out a change and it affects all my customers, all my users at the same time. So you have new versions being deployed that do not replace the existing versions, but they live in parallel for an amount of time. And you can evaluate, very importantly, in production, what is the performance, what is the feature, is this working correctly or not? And in production, you can see if this new version is working fine. And you can decide whether this new version is successful or not. I don't know you, I'm old enough to remember that there was a CrowdStrike issue that took out a big chunk of the internet, where they deployed a change, and this went on to all their machines connected to the internet at once. So this was very interesting because I like to read the root cause analysis. And one of the things they came up with to prevent this from happening in the future is, well, we should not deploy this at once to everybody. It makes sense today, but there is no guarantee that no matter how much amount of testing you do, it's not guaranteed that this is going to work in production for everybody, especially if you have a large user base. So one of the things they said was, we're going to do Canary testing and successfully promote these Canaries doing, they call it deployment rings, but basically saying different percentage of users over time. So if there's a problem that takes out the computers where this is being deployed, at least you don't take all of them. You just take a 1%, a 5%, a 10%, whatever it is always going to be better than all of them. So progressive delivery is about avoiding downtime. You deploy something, you mess up. I've messed up before, right? And everybody does at some point if you are old enough. And limiting the blast radius, I mess up, at least not all my users notice. And then, because of these guardrails, this allows you to move faster. You have an idea, you deploy it to a percentage of users, or you put it behind a feature flag, or some of the techniques I'm going to talk about, and then you can go on to production. The techniques, again, these are common, and we've been doing them for a while with virtual machines, but we can do them now in places like Kubernetes. Who's using Kubernetes today? Okay. Most people are using Kubernetes. I'm assuming everybody else knows what Kubernetes is. Unless you have been hidden under a rock, you would know. So rolling updates is this idea. It was done before for VMs, but this is the default rollout of Kubernetes. You change a deployment, you get new pods, new containers coming up, and as new containers come up, new pods, the old ones get deleted. So you have one new pod, delete the old pod, another new pod, delete the old pod, and you can set parameters to do it faster, slower, more pods at once, less pods at once, but this is the default. You have not control about success or not success on Kubernetes, typically on rolling updates. you would depend on somebody actually checking if this is successful or not. Blue-green deployment, again, same thing was done with VMs. Now we can do it with Kubernetes. You have two versions running at the same time, V1, V2. When you have V2 running and you check that it's OK, you just switch a load balancer or something. You just send all the traffic to the new version. If you detect a problem, you just change the load balancer to the old version, and you're done with it. So that's another one that has been around forever. Canary deployment is it's not having around so long, but it's the same. The idea is I have some users that go to the new version, some users that go to the old version. So typically, I would say I want 1% of my customers, users to go to the new version, everybody else goes to the old version, and I keep increasing this percentage over time. And eventually, I get to 100%. How fast you do this, how often you do this, is up to you to decide. And choosing also the groups that are being canaried is something that you can decide. An example, you could say, I want the canary to only be seen by internal employees before showing it to any external customers. So you typically would have some headers, or you could use geolocation saying, I want this country to see things before other countries for whatever reasons. And this is related to dark launching, which is this also, Canary dark launching is very related. It's how do I launch features that are not seen by everybody? How can I say, oh, I want to quickly develop this feature and put the code into production, but not actually show it to anybody, and then later on decide who I want this to see. This is also related to feature flags. Feature flags is I'm separating totally what is a release and a deployment. So I'm putting my code into production, but people not necessarily will see that new functionality, this fix, or whatever it is. I have some feature flag service, which could be from environment variables to something more complex. Even the CNCF has the open feature project that will allow you to do this easily, open source, free, where you can have enable and disable features, and then in your code you check, okay, is this flag set? Then I'm showing you this version or this code. Is this flag not set? I can show you the other one. And over time, you can enable this feature, this flag for different customers, and if something goes wrong, you just disable that flag, and that's it. So for me, a lot of it is about monitoring, and I call it monitoring is the new testing, because this way you have data from production, and this data, these metrics, you can react to these issues automatically. And what I like to say is, if you haven't automatically destroyed something by mistake, is that you are not automating enough. I mean, I've been in the place where you automate things, then you realize, oh, you broke something, and then automatically gets deployed. And we all make mistakes, that's fine. But at least we're trying to automate a lot of things. How can we do this easily in Kubernetes? On Kubernetes, you have a service architecture, and you have a load balancer, you have a service definition, and that service is what says which pods are going to receive this traffic. So you get traffic. This is the default Kubernetes default Kubernetes service architecture. You get traffic through the load balancer. The load balancer sends the traffic to the service, and the service sends the traffic to the pods. I mean, this is all logical. There's not service is just a logical concept. But on Kubernetes, there's now the ingress architecture. So you have an ingress service, an ingress controller, and you receive traffic, and then the ingress can do more smarter things. You can do, based on host base, decide where this which service is this traffic going to. You can do headers. You can do geolocation. You could do a bunch of other different things, more advanced. And you have multiple Kubernetes ingress controllers today. If you run on cloud, you have the cloud-provided ones. But then you have Nginx, Istio, which is a service mesh, HA proxy, and you can choose what ingress controller you want to use. And different ones have different implementations and different feature sets. Now, anybody heard about Argo? Okay. And specifically, Argo rollouts? Okay. So a lot of people heard about Argo CD, probably not so much about Argo rollouts. Argo rollouts is a project, an open source project, part of the CNCF, and is part of the Argo ecosystem. There's Argo CD, there's Argo workflows, and I think there was something else. And there's also Argo rollouts. So Argo CD is for continuous delivery, workflows to do your workflows on Kubernetes, and rollouts is to do progressive delivery. And it provides you with capabilities like blue-green, Canary, analysis, experimentation, and all of them inside Kubernetes very easily. I'm going to talk about Canary mostly and Canary analysis, but for instance, experimentation is an interesting one where you can say, I want to run this version in parallel for a period of time to gather data, and then shut it down. And then also, if you have a service mesh or some advanced networking thing, you can do cool things like mirroring traffic. Oh, I want all the traffic that is coming from my old version to also go to the new version, so I gather metrics on the new version before I even expose it. So all of this is possible with Argo rollouts. The way Argo rollouts works is there's this new concept of a rollout object in Kubernetes that works together or replaces a deployment. You have the rollout controller and an analysis template for Canary analysis. This analysis template says, what are the success criteria for your deployment? And on the right-hand side, you can see that, well, let me go. From the analysis template that you define, when the rollout is running, you have an analysis run. This is basically, I'm going to run an analysis on the new version that I'm deploying. The rollout has two replica sets in Kubernetes. This is two sets of pods, the stable and the Canary. And it manages both of them based on your Canary steps. If you say, I want 10% going into the Canary, 90% on the stable, it's going to manage either a service mesh or the pods to make sure that that percentage of traffic is going to one or another. So it's going to create more pods, less pods if you don't have any service mesh. If you have a service mesh like Istio, it's going to change the service mesh. If you have a service mesh, it allows finer grain control. So you could say, I want 1% of the traffic. If you don't use a service mesh, it's just is the weight of the number of pods. If you have 10 pods, 1 is the new version, 9 is the old version. And then you have 10% of the traffic going to the new version. So this is all managed by Argo rollouts. And the analysis run, based on what you defined on the analysis template, is going to go to one of their metrics providers or analysis providers. Typically, you will have Prometheus with metrics, but there's other things that you can do. Prometheus, in my analysis template, I can say, I want the percentage of 200 codes to be higher than 90%, or I want 500 errors to be less than 1%. Whatever metric you figure out, you can set that on your template. The analysis is going to be executed, and then it's going to go to Prometheus, get a metric, and if that metric doesn't succeed, it's going to automatically roll it back for you. So you don't have to do anything. If you push bad code and you have decent metrics, it's going to roll it back. And only some users are going to see that issue. And let me show you the demo. OK. I have Canary, and here is the console for Argo rollouts. And I have my application. Let me see here. Okay, so I have an application that is showing green. The service is returning green. And at the bottom, you see how many greens I'm getting. And what I can do is I'm going to change this to blue. I'm going to change the image. Did I? OK. So the canary is now progressing. You see at the top, there's a yellow canary demo. Some pods are being started to do the canary testing. And if I go to my app, I should start seeing some blue ones, blue dots. So the blue dots are coming from the new version. The green ones are coming from the old version. And of course, I just changed the deployment live directly in Kubernetes because YOLO. But typically, you would do this as part of our GitOps or whatever process. When this gets into Kubernetes, Argo would take over. But however you change the deployment, that doesn't matter. It's just going to do it. Yeah, let me see if I can show you both at the same time. OK. This one here. So the blue thing here on the CLI is the analysis run. My analysis run is a job, in this case, that I'm running to see that my code is running fine. OK, let me just run this again. And the analysis run is what's going to decide, is the new deployment fine or not? If it's fine, I'm going to keep going. If not, I'm going to roll back. And it's taking a little bit. I can show you. This is probably scaling up the cluster, maybe. I'm running on Google Cloud Kubernetes cluster, Kubernetes engine. I can go here, and let's see if I have the workloads. For instance, I can do the CLI, or I can do the UI. I have the Canary demos running. And there should be a job running here somewhere. Oh, this one. This is the job that is checking that the new version is fine or not. And let's go. OK. Yeah, this is taking a bit longer. I think the cluster is scaling up. Let's see this. It's running. Oh, I forgot. I totally forgot. For the demo, I set up a pause. And I totally forgot about it, because typically, otherwise, this will be too fast. OK. So this is kubectl, Argo, rollouts, and this promote. And this is Canary demo. OK. I totally forgot about this. So now I'm manually saying the new version is OK, keep going. So you can also have these manual steps in there. And I added this because otherwise the demo was too fast and I couldn't talk about it, but then I forgot about it. So now I'm getting more and more blue dots on the right-hand side as new pods are coming in. And the analysis is running, everything looks fine, and eventually this is going to go to 100% if nothing is broken, and then the new version will show all blue. I can also do, I can always go and see the Canary version by itself. Argo gives us a view of only the Canary where I can see what's the new version, and it's all blue, right? So everything looks fine. So I could look at that before saying a promote, or if I wanted to see this internally for whatever reason. OK, now the Canary has finished, and it says everything is fine. And the Canary became a stable version, and I'm back to where I was before. I have something stable running, and it's all blue now. What happens if I do if I make a mistake, I know we never make mistakes, but just in case that happens, okay, so this is not. Let's see, I'm going to change the image again. Let me. And this was bad red. OK. And yes, this is running, this is running. Now I have a canary where I'm getting red dots, right? I changed my image, and my new service is returning red as in the return. But this image is broken. I made a mistake, I deployed something, it is broken. Now, Argo is going to run the analysis, and it should notice that this image is broken, and it should tell me, OK, I'm rolling this back because I detected this is broken. Now, with analysis, it's very cool that you can do, and it already did it, and it is very cool that you can have any sorts of metrics. So you can have 500 errors, that would be the typical one, but you could also have business metrics. You have a shopping cart, and you deploy something, and you realize people are not adding things to the shopping cart. So maybe you made a mistake in the UI, and the add to shopping cart is not working. That's a big problem for any company, right? So you can have all sorts of metrics or running any custom code. So here, it detected, it says the rollout is degraded, the new version failed, and the canary was scaled down, and it's back to blue. So without me having to do anything, I can detect that something is wrong, and Argo will roll it back. I also have a UI that Argo provides, where it will tell me in which step I'm running, the revisions, what happened here. And this one is the last one that I did, and I can see the analysis that has failed. The previous one was the rollout of the blue one, and is now stable. And I can see my steps where 20% wait first, pause, 40, 10 seconds pause, 60, 10 seconds, 80, 10 seconds. So you define whatever you want there. And I can do restarts, retries. So if you want to go into manually controlling this eventually, eventually you want to all be automated, but you can have these nice dashboards to show you around. And these, OK. So the other interesting thing that I've done here, so my analysis job is a very simple one. I'm just doing a curl against the endpoint and say, is this returning a 200 or it's not? Now, you would say, OK, this is nice, but how could this be cooler? Well, if we sprinkle some AI on top of it, right? Everything is better with AI. I'm bacon, but AI today. So one thing you can do, and I'm playing with this, I'm taking the logs and then sending them to, in this case, Gemini, so any AI model. And Gemini is telling me, oh, the Canary returned, for the previous version, the Canary returned 200 blue for every request, indicating all requests were successful and returned the expected blue response. This suggests the Canary is healthy, right? This is Gemini telling me a nice paragraph that I could maybe now show to users. Why is my rollout failing? OK, there is I can give you metrics, but I can also give you a nice human-readable explanation. For the one that broke, it says the Canary received 10 responses, all of them being 500 errors with the body red. This strongly suggests a systemic issue with the Canary version. So I can get some analysis. If you have your own models, you could even say, I want to do log analysis, metrics analysis using any AI model. So if you are tweaking your model, you could not only use metrics, but also use some sort of AI to decide, is this right, is this not right? Everything is better with AI, right? Now, I hope you got from here, there's just some things that I hope you got from this talk is, what is progressive delivery? Just a new name for things that existed forever. Well, forever. Forever being a period of time. Some things that existed for some time already, but how can I use them in a practical way, and how can I easily use them on my projects? And you can take them, hopefully, tomorrow and give it a try and see if they work for you. All right? So thank you, Fala.